welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Megan and I'm a professional writer and editor and a published author. I already changed the YouTube settings on this video to mark it as 18 plus, but I'm giving you the trigger warning anyway. This video talks about writing naughty stuff, okay? Still, I'm gonna do my very best to use PG terms, but if you're at work or in front of your grandmother, unless she is super laid back, maybe listen with headphones. In some of my recent videos, I shared that I'm currently writing a fantasy novel, my very first, and in this video, I shared that more specifically, it's romantasy, fantasy romance. This is a massive detour from anything I've written before. I'm grateful for the detour and I'm loving it. I'm having so much fun. Now, romantasy only means that romance is a bigger part of the plot. It does not automatically mean that there's going to be explicit content within the book, but sometimes there is explicit content, and that's what I'm currently working on. Smut. I'm talking about smut. The word smut is thrown around a lot, so the meaning has become a little bit blurry. In my case, to be clear, I am not referring to corn. In my novel, there is a romantic relationship. It's a slow burn. So the protagonist meets someone, they kind of hate each other at first, and over time they realize that they actually kind of love each other. So for my book, there is going to be love and romance and flirtation and naughty things. No shade to anyone who just likes to keep it dirty and get straight to the good stuff. I love to read slow burn romances and smut. The romance and the anticipation and buildup, those are what make the smut so exciting to me, so that's what I'm writing. That's just the inspiration I have right now. All right, so we've cleared up the terminology. I'm trying to be better about sharing my writing online, like on Twitter and Threads, and the response has been funny. Some people are like, hell yeah, I love smut. And I'm like, oh my God, same. And other people clutch their pearls. They are so offended. So don't read it, man. What do you want from me? This exchange in particular made me giggle, and it was good. It was totally fine. I tweeted, not gonna lie, writing smut is fun. And someone asked, and again, this response was completely acceptable. He said, what's the smut for? Erotic appeal, shock value, building character? That's a great question. I didn't answer right away because to me, the answer is just, I like it. I like smut and I wanted to try writing it, and that's it. But then someone chimed in and said, people being people and doing what people do when they like each other. I thought this was such a nice answer and so simple. And for someone who has a very live and let live mindset like me, it was just a good response. I feel like there's a reputation with smut and people who read it and write it. You must have loose morals if you enjoy smut. No. And importantly, there's nothing sinful or trashy or dirty about it. If anything, smut is a safe way to explore your fantasies. Live and let live. We have to remember that it's fictitious. Now, I would never get online and talk about my own personal life and bedroom habits. That, to me, is private. Writing fictitious stories about magical creatures living in a magical world, and two of them decide to... There's nothing wrong with it. Now, what has this process looked like for me? The process of writing smut, I mean. It's been fun and funny. Again, I've never done this before. I've read a ton of it, but I hadn't written it until recently. The way I'm approaching it is I'm kind of working backwards, which I do frequently with my writing. I know that once my characters do it for the first time, I want readers to be like, oh my God, finally. Which means there needs to be an incredible buildup. And the best way to do that is to have them start at the opposite extreme, hating each other. Say what you want about the enemies to lovers trope. People love it because of the transformation. Also, it was important to my plot in general that they start off hating each other. I wasn't only doing this because of where I'm trying to take them romantically. It's bigger than that, but it certainly helps with the romance side of things. I'm making it so that their hatred and distrust toward each other slowly unravel, slowly fall apart, and bit by bit, like we're building a brick house, their opinions of each other start to change. They really have to earn it, making the physical content in the book even sweeter because it took them so long and it took such drastic changes in their mindset for them to get there. And at the end of the day, the most important thing for not just for your protagonist, but all of your characters to some degree, is that by the end of the novel, they are very different from who they were in the beginning. Romance is one aspect of that for my characters, and there are other aspects that have nothing to do with romance or smut. In terms of writing the more explicit scenes specifically, I'll be honest, I do get a little self-conscious sometimes, even though it's not like anyone is reading over my shoulder. It's just me. But if you've written anything, then you probably know the feeling of being vulnerable, of being exposed when someone else reads your work. It's very personal. Now, imagine writing a dirty scene and showing people that. Talk about exposure. But I think that's why already I feel like I've grown a lot as an author, because this is challenging me and it's forcing me to be more confident, which I just realized I talked about wanting to be more confident in this video. So there you go. This has made me feel like a badass, and it's fun to write. It's a win-win. The content itself, what I've written so far has been kind of dirty, but I also want to do it in a very smooth, sexy way, because again, once these characters get physical, they really like and eventually love each other. It's a very powerful, almost spiritual experience for them. Two creatures who grow to trust each other completely, enough to be totally vulnerable and kind of at each other's mercy. So things are gonna get spicy. But importantly, especially in terms of the dialogue, I'm also mindful of keeping them true to their personalities. Like how do I explain this? I'm not gonna make a scene dirty just for the sake of it. I feel like you can accomplish this without having these creatures act completely out of character. I already know that there are things my protagonist would and wouldn't say in bed, for example. I'm not thinking, okay, as long as it's dirty, it fits. No, it's how would she act at this point in time in this scenario. Yes, she's outside her comfort zone because she used to hate this other character, but she's not going to do a complete 180. That would be very jarring and inauthentic to a reader, and I would feel it as well. One big question I've been pondering in general is how much is too much, both for the book and the characters? Like, how do I know when I've gone too far? Well, one thing, and this kind of goes back to the tweet that I mentioned, I will not write this type of content purely for shock value. You do you, that's just not me. I want to tell a beautiful, moving, life-changing story. Love and sex are part of it, but they need to be woven in with care. I do know that there are certain lines I wouldn't cross, certain things I wouldn't write, because then I would be getting into a territory where I wasn't completely comfortable anymore, and why would I do that to myself? Other than that, I'm trying to allow the characters to guide me. I shared in a previous video that I realized my protagonist wouldn't say or do some of the things I had planned for her when I was plotting this story. And that's great. That means that I developed this character so much and allowed her to show me, that's not me, I wouldn't do that. I found this to be very eye-opening, and I want to continue making room for that. So when I get to the point that there's a spicy scene, I kind of just want to write and try not to impose my own preconceived notions and let the characters decide, which I know sounds like, Meg, they're fictional characters. They're words on a page. They can't decide. Well, they can. I've learned this now. If you're paying close attention, you will know when you're trying to force a character to do something that they wouldn't do. Now, I feel like I'm being repetitive here, but I'm trying to set it up so that by the time they become physical, my protagonist has the room and the freedom in terms of her personality and her transformation to do things she wouldn't normally do. I'm preparing for that. That's part of her change. Otherwise, none of this would happen. There would be no book. But that doesn't mean that anything goes. And I kind of already touched on this. It's a delicate balance. I feel like I'm contradicting myself in this video. Maybe the best way to describe it is it's a balance. I'm not going to say, oh, she'd never do that with a man. Rather, it's what I said before. Would she do that right now in this scenario, which she's never been in before? I try not to make assumptions while also respecting the character. I don't know if I'm making any sense. It makes sense in my head. I got to this point in recording this video and I realized I absolutely completely contradicted myself. To sum it all up, I feel like it's taking into consideration where the character is at that point in the book, because, you know, by the time my protagonist gets it on with this other character, we're going to be at least halfway through the book. And halfway through any story, the protagonist should have changed at least a little bit. So she's going to do things that she wouldn't have done in the beginning of the book, but she's kind of a different person now. So that's what I mean when I say I'm giving the characters breathing room, but not like infinite room. Even halfway through the book, there are still going to be things that she would never do. And that's what I mean when I say I'm trying to stay true to the character. Oh my God, is this making any sense? Thanks for bearing with me while I word vomit. Last thing I want to talk about is smut, romantasy from a selling standpoint. I have wondered what agents and publishers think of smut. Obviously it gets published. Look at ACOTAR and Quicksilver and a million other books. But most of us aren't Sarah J. Maas. So if little old me were to query a literary agent with this book, how would that go? I mean, I get nothing but rejections anyway, so do I care? I will always say, write the story you want to write. This is too much work to do anything else, aside from write what you want to write. I believe in this story so much. I love it so much, and I'm having so much fun. That agent or not, this book will be published one way or another. 15 years of writing books, and I feel like I'm just now finding it. I'm finding my thing. I could see myself writing stories like this for a long time. If that means I end up self-publishing, so be it. I'm too proud of it to let it sit in my computer forever. Anyways, that's a long ways off. For now, I write. If this video triggered you in the sense that you're like, ugh, first of all, why did you watch it? And second, I've seen this on Twitter, especially people saying that smut is ruining fantasy. People like it. It's that simple. People like writing it and they like reading it, and that's okay. Fantasy is such a cool genre because it's an escape. It allows us to experience things we might never experience otherwise. Smut can be a part of that. Live and let live. Read what you love. Stay open-minded. You never know what's going to tickle your pickle. Keep writing, keep reading, keep exploring. Think outside the box. There's so much to explore, and amazing things will happen to you. If you had asked me even a year ago if I thought I might be writing a book like this, I would have been like, I'm so glad I kept an open mind. This has been so eye-opening for me in many ways, and I've learned a lot. I've grown a lot, and why write otherwise? Write because you love it. All right, that's it for today. Thanks as always for being here. If you have any thoughts or insight or comments, just drop them below, and I do my best to respond to everybody. It might take me a little while, but I will get there, and I'll see you in the next video.